In early 2026, something happened that almost no one outside the real estate world noticed. Seattle was ranked the worst performing major housing market in the entire United States. Not one of the worst. The worst, dead last out of the 20 largest metros tracked, with prices falling, while most of the country held steady or rose. That single fact tells you the Washington housing story has flipped. After a decade of relentless gains, certain cities are now genuinely risky places to put your money. Buy the wrong home in the wrong city right now, and you could watch your equity evaporate. Today, I am counting down 10 Washington cities you should never buy a home in right now in 2026, ranked from number 10 to the riskiest market in the state. Every number comes from current 2026 housing data. Stick around for number 1. Let's get into it. Starting at number 10, Everett. Everett sits north of Seattle and lives and dies by one employer, Boeing. That is the risk. When a single aerospace giant anchors a city's entire economy, every round of layoffs ripples straight into the housing market. Boeing has trimmed its workforce repeatedly in recent years, and each cut sends families looking to sell. Add a brutal Interstate 5 commute and rising inventory, and Everett becomes a city where home values are exposed to forces a buyer cannot control. You are not just buying a house. You are betting on Boeing's next few years. For a market this dependent on one company, the risk is real. That is number 10. Number 9, Federal Way. Federal Way is one of the suburbs that stretched furthest during the pandemic boom. Buyers priced out of Seattle pushed values up fast, and now that gravity is reversing, the combination of softening prices, a crime reputation that drives families out, and rising property taxes makes it a shaky place to buy at today's prices. The deeper problem is the buyer pool. Federal Way's value depended on Seattle being unaffordable. As Seattle itself softens, the spillover demand that propped up Federal Way weakens with it. Buying here now means catching a falling knife. That is number 9. Number 8, Spokane. Spokane was the pandemic's poster child for the remote work boom. Priced out of Seattle, thousands of workers flooded east and pushed Spokane home prices up nearly double in a few years. That was the warning sign. Now the remote workers are being called back or priced out, and local wages simply cannot support pandemic-era prices. When home values race far ahead of local income, the market becomes fragile. Spokane's affordability was its whole appeal, and that appeal stretched prices to a level the local economy struggles to justify. A boom built on outside money is only as stable as that money. That is number 8. Number 7, Vancouver, Washington. Vancouver's pitch was always Portland access without Oregon's income tax. But that pitch tied Vancouver's fortunes directly to Portland, and Portland's economic and crime troubles have spilled across the river. Now Vancouver faces softening demand and the same regional cooling hitting the rest of the Northwest. A border town's value depends on the metro next door staying healthy. When the larger neighbor struggles, the smaller city inherits the problem without the upside. Buying into a spillover market as the source weakens is a poor bet. That is number 7. Number 6, Tacoma. Tacoma rode Seattle's overflow for years. As Seattle became impossible, buyers pushed south and lifted Tacoma's prices well beyond what its own economy and reputation would normally support. Now two things are converging. Seattle's softening removes the spillover demand, and Tacoma's well-documented crime reputation caps how high values can climb. When prices are propped up by a neighbor's prices, rather than local fundamentals, they are vulnerable the moment that neighbor cools. Tacoma is exactly that kind of market right now. Borrowed momentum is not a foundation. That is number 6. Before the top 5, if this is helping you think clearly about Washington real estate, subscribe. The cities coming up carry the steepest downside risk in the entire state. Number 5, Kent. Kent is a working-class engine of the Seattle metro, warehouses, distribution, middle-income neighborhoods. During the boom, Kent families stretched their budgets to the limit. Then everything got more expensive at once. Mortgages, insurance, property taxes, fuel, groceries. That leaves a lot of households financially maxed out, exactly the kind of owners forced to sell when anything goes wrong. A market full of overextended buyers is a market where a small economic shock can trigger a wave of listings. Kent's inventory has room to climb, and prices with it. Overextended owners make for a fragile market. That is number 5. Number 4, Kirkland. Kirkland is genuinely desirable. Waterfront, walkable, a Google campus nearby. But desirability at this price level is exactly the risk. Kirkland sits in the luxury East Side tier, and the luxury segment, homes above $1.5 million, is currently the softest part of the entire Washington market. When the high-end cools, premium suburbs like Kirkland feel it first and hardest. Buyers at this level have options. They are not desperate, and they negotiate aggressively as inventory rises. Pay top dollar in a softening luxury market, and you may wait years just to break even. Premium price, premium downside. That is number 4. Number 3, Shoreline and the North King County corridor, including Bothell and Woodinville. This corridor saw active housing inventory surge by roughly 88% year over year, while pending and closed sales fell sharply. Here is the data point almost nobody is talking about. The most extreme inventory buildups anywhere in the state, and it is a textbook setup for falling prices. When listings nearly double while buyers pull back, sellers are forced to compete, and the only tool they have is price. The median in this corridor has already started slipping. A buyer stepping in now is buying into a market with a massive and growing oversupply. 88% more homes for sale is a flashing warning light. That is number 3. Number 2, Bellevue. Bellevue is the crown jewel of the East Side, and that is precisely why it is so risky right now. Bellevue carries some of the highest prices in the entire state. Single-family medians around $2 million, and the most expensive markets have the furthest to fall when the cycle turns. The East Side has seen enormous inventory increases. The luxury segment is soft statewide, and Bellevue's buyer pool, heavy in tech wealth, is exposed to the same tech layoffs and capital gains tax migration, pushing high earners toward Texas and Florida. When the wealthy buyers thin out, there is no larger pool beneath them to catch the prices. The higher the price, the harder the fall. That is number 2. Now the single riskiest market in Washington. Number 1, Seattle. In March 2026, Seattle posted the worst home price performance of any major metro in the country, falling 2.5% year over year, while the national market barely moved. And the forces behind that number are still building. Seattle metro inventory hit what one housing analyst called a historic shock, roughly double the normal level for the season. Construction permits have fallen off a cliff, down from around 32,000 units a few years ago to roughly 14,000, a sign of collapsing developer confidence. Tech layoffs have hollowed out the high-earning buyer pool. A capital gains tax and rising permit fees have pushed wealthy buyers out of state. And the median home still sits around $865,000, historically out of reach for most families, even as it falls. That is the trap. Prices are high enough to lock most people out, yet falling fast enough to destroy equity for anyone who buys at the top. Worst performing major market in America, with the pressures still mounting. That is number 1. One honest note: never buy is about timing and risk, not a permanent verdict. Market cycle. A city that is dangerous to buy in today can be a smart buy in a few years once prices reset. Real estate is local, and a good agent who knows the specific neighborhood is worth far more than any countdown.